Good evening, friends, and welcome to another edition of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace. We are retired New York City police detectives and 9/11 World Trade Center first responders. Hey, if you like all things true crime related from the police detective's perspective, you're in the right place. Hit that subscribe button, hit the notification bell so you'll get all things DutyRon and this guy right here, Ed Wallace, when we go live or upload another video. Hey, tonight we have a special guest. We'll get to him in a few minutes. He is a retired lieutenant, and he is a statement analysis expert. We're going to be going over the interviews. This is by your suggestion, and I go by what the audience is looking for and the questions that you send in to DutyRon.com. We're going to analyze. We're going to go into an analysis of Madeline Soto's mom, Jennifer Soto, and Stephan Sterns. He gave 2 interviews to the news just a week ago on Tuesday, last week. This is a very sad and unfortunate and tragic case, which involves a 13-year-old, and the crimes that were committed against her date back as far as 2022 when she was 11 years old. And that's what's documented in the arrest warrants. It may go back even further. And as you said, Ed, there may be many other victims within that family or within his previous relationships and people who he's come into contact. This guy's 37 years old. Ed, how are you doing tonight? Where are you? Are you in an undisclosed location tonight, Ed?
Yes, I'm in an undisclosed location, and I'm working tonight. That's correct. I'm on a break right now, so I have some time to share with the chatters and our audience. Yeah, you know, it's not only that too, it's also where he was employed. We have to look at where he was employed, because if the facts bear out, he was at one point in time employed by Disney.
Right. And we weren't able to get 100% confirmation of that, but most of the times when people put their their past employment and stuff on Facebook, most of the times it's right. And we know that the mom was employed by Disney, so maybe they met there. I mean, we don't know. We don't have all the facts. This is very early in the investigation, but as of tonight, a local news station, Channel 9 local news, had some information that was something we spoke on Saturday. We felt that some of the statements that were being put out were very contradictory. They didn't match up. And our detective sense, we were right on that. And we had to be vocal about it, because we would be at fault if we weren't telling you guys. If we were to just say to you, oh, the mom, everything seems nice, hunky-dory and normal. This is a grieving mom. There was a lot of red flags, a lot of bells rung off between myself and Ed. And we reached out to some of our friends and some of our executives from different states and guys and girls with different trades. And that's why we have Lieutenant Bob Schaefer, retired, coming on with us in a few minutes. But before we get into that, I want to play this little piece because Ed's got limited time. So let's let this rip. This is from just an hour ago, folks.
Death of 13-year-old Madeline Soto. Why prosecutors are now calling for an investigation into this local sheriff, and how the story Madeline's mother provided law enforcement doesn't line up with what investigators know.
Listen up, folks.
We spoke one-on-one with Jennifer Soto last Tuesday. Good afternoon. I'm Darlene Jones.
And I'm Greg Wormuth. At that point, her daughter Madeline had been missing for 1 day. She told us that Stephan Sterns, her boyfriend and now the prime suspect in Madeline's death, had taken the teenager to school. She said the last conversation she had with the 13-year-old was the night before. But this report we got a hold of today shows she told deputies she saw her daughter the morning of her disappearance. Channel 9 investigative reporter Shannon Butler has been digging into the details of this case. She joins us live in studio. And Shannon, that's not the only thing you noticed in this new report.
Greg, no one has been charged in Madeline Soto's death, but we do know investigators are looking into who knew what and when. And some of that means looking at those initial interviews of the couple and the ones later on. Sources tell me the statements about the timeline are not consistent. Jennifer Soto told us last week that the last conversation she had with her daughter was about her 13th birthday party the night before Maddie disappeared.
I told her good night, and yeah, that was it.
But according to documents, Sunday night was not the last time Soto saw Maddie. New documents show that Maddie's mom told deputies on February 26th that she saw her daughter getting dressed for school at 8 o'clock that morning and that her boyfriend.
I want to remind the folks in the chat, okay, this is coming from her statement that she gave to detectives. By her own admission, she says during this interview, the detectives came and interviewed us here at the home. Ed, you remember that, right?
That's right.
So that is what you saw there was an official police report. So this is not something that's just a YouTube or a Facebook rumor. This is what Jennifer Soto told investigators. So essentially she lied to them, and that is damning. And I'm telling you guys, I'm going to bring Ed and I back on. I'm telling you guys, I wouldn't just say things just to say it. And sometimes I am wrong. We're not 100% right all the time. We're human just like you guys. But our experience in investigating crimes and criminals, that my hair on my arms, I think, yeah, that's what I was telling you guys. The hair on my arms stood up, the red flags went off, the alarms went off, and I took some shit for it because people were like, well, you're going out. Well, here we are. Here we are, just a week later, and you got the news getting a hold of these reports. This is going to be, she's got some splaining to do, as Ed Wallace would say, right, Ed?
We have the right to remain silent, right? But they gave that statement to law enforcement, and then look at the timeline that she just said in that statement there, okay, that she gave police. It doesn't jive what she said with the news interviews. So, she was a chatty Cathy, and her boyfriend were chatty Cathy's on the news, gave multiple interviews, and there's a lot of inconsistencies with what they told to police and what the police already knew from the evidence they already had. So yeah, she's in a bit of trouble.
Absolutely. And we're going to get into it with our expert. He's going to be joining us. He's got a whole bunch of information and notes that we're going to get into, and just give us 2 more seconds. But this is what the story is about here. This is our victim. This is our victim right here. And this is what it's all about. Maddie Soto, 13 years young, just became a teenager, and her life was cut short on that fateful Sunday evening going into Monday morning. She didn't even make it out of that house alive, according to what I'm reading and what I'm seeing, what's being said by investigators.
To documents, Sunday night was not the last time Soto saw Maddie. New documents show that Maddie's mom told deputies on February 26th that she saw her daughter getting dressed for school at 8 o'clock that morning and that her boyfriend then took the teen to school. But since that initial report was taken, we learned from the Orange County Sheriff that Maddie was likely dead earlier than that.
Our detectives have determined that Madeline was never dropped off. Instead, we believe she was already dead at the time, and that Stephan Sterns moved her body in the early morning hours on that day.
Channel 9 has been going through statements from Stephan Sterns and Soto trying to piece together what happened in the last few hours of the little girl's life, starting with our interview of the couple. Her mom told us last week.
We dropped her off at school, close to school. She wanted to walk the rest of the way.
But in that same interview, then said,
I wasn't the one who took her to school in the morning. That was my partner. Yeah.
Detectives believe Maddie was likely dead early Monday morning because a video timeline shows Maddie's belongings being dumped in a dumpster at 7:35 by Stearns. At 8:19, Sheriff Mina said video shows Maddie in Stearns' vehicle believed to be deceased. Since then, the case has moved to Kissimmee Police, and sources tell us that Soto has been interviewed multiple times by detectives at 2 agencies and that they are looking closely at all the statements she's made. But officially, Kissimmee Police won't comment. So this initial report also shows that Stearns told investigators that after Maddie got out of his car, she stopped to look in that book bag before he drove away. That same book bag was found actually in the dumpster. After her death, he then said he went home for about an hour after going to the vape store and running errands. He was home that day until 2:30. Detectives say a tip showed him changing a flat tire not far from where the little girl's body was found that afternoon.
I'm going to leave it at that right there, Ed. The statement that the police chief, the sheriff, put out 7:35 a.m. he is seen discarding her backpack, and inside that dumpster was her backpack and her school-issued laptop. Doesn't jive with what mom said that at 8 o'clock she was kissing her, good day, and telling, watching her get dressed and go off to school. She's got a lot of explaining to do, and I'm sure by now she's lawyered up because we haven't heard anything from her.
Yeah, well, they couldn't get their story straight from the time they did the dirty deed to the time they notified the police finally to come and start a report of a missing person.
Yep.
So, like I said, we all have the right to remain silent, and she chose not to remain silent when she could have. And between her, the murdering boyfriend and her, they couldn't get their story straight. And there's so much inconsistencies here that she is now, I believe, a person of interest or a suspect.
I don't even like that person of interest word. They use it a lot. We don't ever use it. She's a perp possible in this crime, a potential perpetrator, and had some type of hand in this crime. We don't know at this point. But again, at 8:19, he returns with Maddie in the car, visible. That was the shocking part of that interview, which is not new news. This was told to us last Friday at that press conference at 1 o'clock. And that prompted somebody to call in, a Good Samaritan. Somebody called in that tip, and that led them to that location. All right, listen, we dragged this out long enough. We got retired Lieutenant Bob Schaefer. He is a expert as it pertains to statement analysis. And when we bring Bob on, we're going to jump right into Jennifer Soto's statement. I was going to do her statement last, but in light of what we just played here, by a show of hands in the chat, who wants to get the analysis from an expert on the statement of Jennifer Soto, the mom? Put a 1 in the chat if that's what you want first. Put a 2 if you want us to go to the perpetrator who's in custody, Stephan Sterns. So let's take a look and see what the chat is. I like to please our audience. I want to give what the audience wants, and I'm seeing the results right now is overwhelming. They want an analysis of Jennifer Soto, the mom. Without further ado, Bob, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your expertise and your friendship, and the camaraderie that we have between law enforcement professionals. Last time you were on for Brian Laundrie, you went into his the backpack notebook and the letter that he wrote. You did an unbelievable job for us, and that's why we kept you in the Rolodex, and we said, let's reach out to Bob. Bob, why don't you tell the audience a little bit about yourself and what your expertise is?
Well, it is great to be back. I really appreciate it. And any opportunity I can have to tout statement analysis, I'm going to do it, because I think it's a dramatically underused investigative tool. So hopefully it gains a little momentum here. I just retired last May after 37 years of police work. I'm out in Colorado. I spent the last 4 of those as a detective lieutenant. And now that I'm retired, I've got a lot more time to spend looking at stuff like this. And I'm excited to share what I think I found here. So
excellent. We just can't wait to hear what you have to say. And I want to just go with how you want this. Where you want to go with this. I didn't know if you were going to go with the stepfather first, the perpetrator. I don't even like to refer to him as a stepfather, step monster. Yeah. She referred to him as the stepfather in the in her official statement to police. So but
in the news report, she said my partner.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And so just so people know that really the only information that I've been looking at are those TV interviews. And I know there's a lot of stuff, press conferences and other information that's come out. And the thing about statement analysis is that when I do it, or any good analyst does it, they don't want to be tainted by outside information. You want that statement to stand on its own. And so I don't want anybody to say, well, that's something that you got out of a press conference. There's kind of some kind of a rumor or something. And so everything that I've got comes strictly from those day after interviews at their house from the TV crew. So
I want to add that I thought, Bob, that when we had our phone conversation today, you were pretty impressed that I didn't show or share with you any, because I respect the trade. I know,
Yeah.
I know that exactly what you just said. You don't want to be swayed one way or another with knowledge of what's going on. You want
Right. Well, let's say as investigators, that's it. It's like we kind of do, I mean, to a lesser degree right now, you and I, parallel investigations. You do your research, I do my research, and we share notes and say, son of a gun, we came up with the same conclusions. And so it lends, it's one of those things that kind of lends credibility to the process. And during an actual police investigation, when you have a technique like statement analysis, you can depend on it because you know that in the past it's pointed people in the right direction every single time, and with a lot more detail than a lot of people can really even fathom. It's a really impressive investigative tool.
Now, Bob, I wanted to ask you right out of the gate. I want to play just a little bit of her interview. I know all of us have seen it, but I want to just play a little bit of it just to get an idea of, for some of the folks outside the country and so forth. But I want to play just maybe a minute or so of her talking.
Yeah.
But from your sense of what you saw so far as it pertains to Jennifer Soto, the mom, what is your general takeaway after you did your analysis? And I don't want to give away the whole shop, but I mean, what did you get feeling wise from her? Can you tell if she was being deceptive? I don't know how far the scope goes of what you do.
Yeah.
What was the feel that you got from what you saw?
Yeah, well, I can drive this down into a lot of detail, but the macro view, the 30,000 foot view is that I'd never seen these videos until late last night. And my first impression was that I look at things either in the end, is the person deceptive or are they truthful? In other words, is that person intending to give the complete and accurate truth, or are they intending to mislead the listener? And my initial, it only took maybe a minute to determine that her story has problems. And that's not based on the story. That's based on her language. And that's why this is a whole different discipline. I'm not trying to make sense of her story. I look at the language that she uses and how she constructs her story to determine whether or not it came from her memory, which would be true, or it came from some other source. And so, but I had my first impression was she's deceptive. Now, to what degree or what about, that's what, when I get into the details, that's what I hope to find is, did she do it? When did she do it? Why did she do it? How did she do it? Or he, in this case. And unfortunately, there wasn't enough detail in these stories, but there was plenty to come to the determination that she's not telling the truth. She's intending to mislead the listener, and he was too.
Ed, I saw you smiling when I had Bob on full screen. You were kind of nodding your head and agreeing with him. This is kind of what we got from our limited, experience as it pertains to this stuff. But we've been around enough people who have lied and been deceptive to us when we've done interviews in the field. And then when you get someone back to the station house, and I've sat in on many interview and interrogations, and I know you have too, Ed. Like I said, my spidey sense with this woman just said to me, there's something not right here. Ed, thoughts?
Yeah. I really am interested in seeing Bob lay it out. So why don't we just let him do it? Let Bob lay it out.
Bob, do you want me to play a minute or so of this of Soto talking, or no?
If your audience needs a reminder as to what the content was, that's perfectly okay. Yeah.
Okay, I'll just do a minute of this.
Okay. So the first question is if I can have your first and your last name and spell them both out for me.
Okay. Jennifer Soto, JENNIFERSOTO.
Mother.
Jennifer,
tell me how you feel right now.
I feel like I can't breathe. All I keep thinking about is, where is she? Is she safe? Is she okay? But we're all a wreck. My entire family's a mess. We're just so worried.
When did you first realize, or when did you file a missing report?
We filed a missing report. We called the police at like 4:45. yesterday, 4:45 p.m. But she actually went missing early that morning, around between 8:45 and 9 o'clock in the morning. She went missing.
I think that's enough. And we saw that this reporter, Bob, was sitting straight across from her, because we did see the reverse angle in that last news piece that we played. I have your notes if you want me to put them up on the screen, or you direct me, because I'm here to work for you.
Yeah, well, I think I can describe it, and if it gets to where people are confused, you can put the notes up, but that might confuse them more. I think you're probably better at describing what's there, and just kind of the main points that I took out of it. And I can
let's see if anybody wants to see these notes by a show of hands in the chat. Would you like to see the notes as Bob? And Bob, I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Whatever they want. Yeah.
You guys would like to see the notes as Bob goes along. This is his. Can you just describe to the audience what this is exactly here that we're looking at, Bob?
Yeah. So this is what I transcribed. So there might be a couple errors in there, but it's what I transcribed. And this is what you're looking at is it's a search pattern. And I'm searching that page for language evidence, just like a detective would search a room for physical evidence. And every time I find something, I make a note of it, I mark it, and I record it. And each one of these circles and lines and colors and things has a different meaning to it. So in a nutshell, just in a real quick explanation of what a statement analyst looks at, is that when a person tells their story, it's based in memory. And so a truthful person just recalls what they remember. A deceptive person, a person that's intending to mislead us, they take that memory and they distort it and they misrepresent it and they alter it. They alter it and filter it to serve their purpose. And so we can tell that, without getting into too much detail, that a truthful statement is just pure memory. And a deceptive statement takes that memory and it screws with it. It alters it and uses language that is, I want to say, reserved for deception. And so we know that there's consistent language, words, phrases, content, structure, quantities of information that tell us that statement or part of a statement is not from memory. It's from some other place. And that it's just a matter of learning that technique and learning to recognize those linguistic signals.
So as it pertains to this 4.5, 5 minute interview that she did here with the news, you go line by line here is what I'm seeing. And you basically, you break this down so you can keep yourself in check in all of the inconsistent, the statements that are not consistent, the we's, the I's, Well,
and so, I mean, people might be looking at this right now and saying, okay, why is that colored yellow? And what does that mean? And so when you consider that when a person gives a statement, it's the product of a question. And that question is, what happened? So when somebody, as a detective or even in a journalist, they say, tell me what happened. What's highlighted in yellow is what didn't happen. It's the exact opposite of what should be in the statement. And so it's the anti-statements, what didn't happen, not what did happen. And so it kind of violates the terms of the interview. And so why is that important? It's because if the person's subconscious deems that it's important enough to get in the story, it had to cheat to get it in there. It had to break the rules to get it in there. So as an analyst, we pay really, really close attention to anything that's marked in yellow or blue, because that tells us it's super sensitive, highly relevant, important information from the perspective of the who's giving the statement. It's really important to them. And then go ahead.
You have these circles and then lines drawn, and then it goes down. Like I looked quickly while I was at work today, and I was trying to get into the mind of retired Lieutenant Bob Schaefer. And I'm sure that the audience is trying to get into the mind, but to make the long story short here, people want to know what was a professional's takeaway. And I think you already said it in a nutshell, but I would like to just break down some of the finer points and some of the points you feel. And I want you to go with it, and I'll take these notes off the screen because I wanted to show everybody
that's so fine. You can leave them up there. I actually kind of,
this is fine. The work that goes into this. So I want you to take it away, Bob.
Yeah. So just again, a little bit further explanation. So without teaching the entire training, every crime that was ever committed since the beginning of humanity has always been the product of a conflicted relationship. Something's wrong in a relationship. Like, I don't have enough money, so I'm going to steal it. And I don't like this person, so I'm going to murder them. There's always a conflicted relationship with a person or something. And so that's why on that screen, you saw the words we and I and a lot of other stuff, because those are relationship words. And those little dinky words, those little pronouns tell us an awful lot about the relationship between people, and regardless of what the story says. So that's what that is. Now, the things that popped out about her statement, and the reason that you have down there the word we, or I have it circled and connected, is because she said, and a lot of people have already picked up on this, it said we had dropped her off, and then she says we dropped her off. So she said that twice. And if you follow that line down the page, you'll notice that she says, I was the keep going there. I was the one who took her to school. And so that right away, there's an inconsistency, and it's all based on the pronouns. And what I thought, and there's always a million ways of saying anything, but I thought that, I'll go back up a little bit. When she said, all she needed to say was, the next day I took her to school, but she was emphatic about saying, I was the one who took her. So she's doing that in a way to convince us. And right off the bat, when I saw that, and I saw the word we, so it changed from we took her to I took her, was that she is trying to cover up for something. And it was my impression, speculated, or an educated speculation, that she's trying to cover for him, that she knows exactly what was going on at that point. And so that, what you got there, in fact, that lines 30 through 34, are, for me, as an analyst, the most important lines in her whole statement. I think your listeners will appreciate maybe what I'm going to talk about here. But she said, we spoke. Now, that word spoke is considered rigid and stiff and very formal. Most words have their casual references, and they also have their formal references, like car and vehicle, dad and father. So one suggests casual and relaxed. The other suggests conflicted or serious, or a lot of tension, a lot of stress. So when she says we spoke about her birthday, it wasn't a relaxed conversation. There was tension, and there was stiffness, and there might have even been some conflict. Spoke is very formal, and not something you would use to describe a birthday party. And so right off the bat, it made me suspect that conversation is not what she's projecting it as. There's something more serious there.
Bob, I wanted to ask you, because a lot of our true crime listeners say to themselves, and we're all, I'm a parent. I'm sure, a lot of people that are watching are parents. I have two boys. When they became teenagers, I was working in the police department, I would take an emergency day off if I had to be at my son's 13th birthday party. You become a man, you become not necessarily a woman, but you become a teenager. That's a big milestone in someone's life. And she just, I don't know, did that stick out to you? Because a lot of our true crime fans and myself, that stood out to me. Like, she just blasted it, like, oh, I couldn't really take off. I wasn't there for her 13th birthday, but I do love her. It just, like, to me, I don't know, maybe I'm off base here, but what was your thoughts on that, Bob? Yeah, well, so that's using logic, to kind of figure out what's going on. Maybe it's right logic, maybe it's not right. But when I knew this, I felt extremely confident that birthday party was, let me say this, when what a person wants to talk about the most is usually relevant to the crime. And we have a premise in statement analysis that the first sentence of any statement is always the most important one, because that's the point where the person went back in time in their mind, and that's whatever was in the first line of the statement is what caused the crime. She wanted to talk a lot about, and Stefan did too, about this birthday party. And right away, instantly, I thought this birthday party has something to do with her being missing. And so now it maybe that I don't know. My guess is that the investigation is going to reveal something. I can't say for sure. What I can say for sure is that the birthday party played a role in her death.
And that's what I can say about that. Now, there's a couple other things I want to point out. And that is, well, see how that she says I couldn't make it. That's highlighted in yellow, which means it's a sensitive issue. It was important to her. So, you know, maybe that's out of guilt. Maybe it was intentional. But to her, that was important, that and sensitive enough, the fact that she wasn't there. But if you drop down to line 32, there's an interesting comment I have boxed in there, and it's going to confuse some people. And I know I'm going to get a bunch of eye rolls when it comes to this one. But anytime, and this I can say this probably pertains more in homicide statements than any other serious crimes against persons, that anytime the author of that statement or makes that comment, they mention saying goodbye, saying good night to someone. There's a deeply seated psychological foundation for that comment that suggests that they're probably the person that did it, or they're connected to it, because and without getting into the deep psychology about it, it's a way of saying, I know that's the last time I'm going to see him. It's the last goodbye. It's the last good night. And I have thousands of statements to compare, truthful ones versus deceptive ones, guilty people versus not guilty. And this is a very consistent, quirky, but consistent occurrence within the statement. When I saw that, when she says, I told her good night, I thought, this isn't good. She's connected to the crime. It wouldn't surprise me. You guys already talked about that.
Right.
Very
I mean,
insightful.
could have said it 100 other different ways. Like I gave her a hug and kiss and told her I loved her, and she went to bed.
Or even mention it. You think about that conversation, there's probably all kinds of things they talked about and did, and what if it even occurred. And this is my suspicion. I'd say there's a good possibility the conversation didn't even occur.
Right.
She's making it up. I think it did occur, but good night, goodbye. Those are clues that you've got the person that did it or is connected to it. And so when I saw those, I just know based on experience that it was a serious conversation. Good night means things are conflicted, and that she knows that there's a problem. There's
and
a serious.
Our true crime aficionados and experts that are in the chat. Look, Eileen Levine says, it sounds so final. Yeah,
it is. It's absolutely. It's the way of saying. And again, this isn't based in logic. It's not. A lot of people would say, "Well, I would say goodnight. I'd say goodbye." It's like you don't know what you'd say because you're not in that situation. You're only thinking hypothetically. Right. She's supposed to be recalling from memory. So when I see that goodnight comment right off the bat, that stuck. It kicked me right in the gut. Maybe a little lower than that, which is that the mom, Jen, knew something was wrong, and maybe details of what that problem was. I suspected she was involved because right next to it, she spends 3 lines talking about this conversation about her birthday party, and then instantly says, I was the one who took her to school. That wasn't part of that conversation.
Right.
That wasn't even part of the conversation. What would cause her to say, oh, but I was the one who took her to school? What the heck does that have to do with this conversation about the birthday party? It's out of place. And and when all she had to say, even to say it more casually, she could have said, I took her to school, and I took her to school the next morning. But to say I was the one, meaning she's comparing, she knows that they're going to be pointing the finger at Stefan, and she's taken the heat for it. I was the one that took her to school. So she was very emphatic about that. It's out of place. It doesn't belong there. And that told me that that piece of information is not credible, that we should look at that very skeptically.
This is huge for our listening audience because, most people that watch, we've seen several high profile cases like Chris Watts, where he stood on this front porch and said, I want my kids back. I love my daughter. I love my wife. Meanwhile, he stuffed them into oil tanks and killed them, killed his pregnant wife. But we want to say this. This is by no means us saying that Jennifer Soto is guilty and has committed any crimes here. This is just a professional analysis, and it's a professional point of view based on the statements that were made. And that's what's great about the news. Sometimes the press and the news can be police and the investigator's worst enemy and then best friend at the same time. when it comes to things like this, and Bob and Ed and myself and many other retired law enforcement professionals will say this, these interviews really help because it catches somebody in a vulnerable moment where they don't feel like they've got the bright lights over them, albeit there's a camera and there's a news crew inside your house. So you're going to be a little nervous no matter what, but it gets to show the investigators what the person's demeanor was a day, 24 hours after your daughter is just vanished, didn't show up to school, alleged, right? Ed, I don't know. Am I off base on this or what, Ed?
No, I just wanted to touch on something, but because from the clip that we just played prior to going into the analysis, I think that statement that we have there might be off just a little bit. I think it wasn't that she said, I was the one that took him to school. At this point, I believe she's saying, I wasn't the one that took her to school. That was my partner.
She corrects it.
Okay.
Bob has it right here in the next part.
Yeah. So that could have been, like I say, just not clear in the transcription. So that's possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
but again, given the nature of the conversation, to abruptly change where she was in the conversation to that is why it's highly suspicious.
Right.
Yeah. Whether it was her or not, it still doesn't. Whoever took her to school doesn't belong in the conversation about her birthday party.
Mm-hmm.
It's out of place, and it still is in conflict with what she stated before. If she says, I wasn't the one who took her, then why did she say we took her to school? She's still in conflict with what she said.
It was up here, right?
Yeah.
We
keep going. Yeah.
Yeah, no, she definitely started saying we took her to school, and then she changed.
Yeah.
We had dropped her off to the school.
Yeah. And here's my something I think people find interesting is that I go back to what I said, that a statement is based on memory, something that actually happened. Well, that didn't happen. They didn't drop her off. So there's no memory to base that story on. She's making it up. She's fabricating out of who knows where. And that's where the confusing language comes in. It's inconsistent because it didn't happen. There's nothing to base it on. So and that's probably an error in the transcript. And that's just me because I was sitting at my kitchen table trying to do it. I couldn't find a transcript already printed out online anywhere. But still, it accomplishes the same thing, which is shows inconsistency from that inconsistency is based on there is no memory of them dropping her off because they didn't do it.
They didn't do it. It's made up. Right.
Yeah.
Do we want to listen to the 4 minutes of her interview, or do we not want to listen? No.
No. Let's continue. And I'm totally into this. I want to see the rest of the analysis.
Well, we skipped over quite a bit because we went from there because we followed the line down.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And there wasn't a lot in between, to be perfectly honest. There's a.
Oh, in line.
One interesting thing here is line 8 through 10. And people might be going, what the heck is that long line? That was a pause. And so when she says she wanted to walk the rest of the way, and then I timed it. Took 10 seconds. It was a 10-second pause. It takes 5 seconds to read a line at a normal speed. She paused for 10 seconds. And
then said this.
The thing is, then that's a sign that she's going to be deceptive because she knows what to say. Her subconscious is prompting her with the story. She has the memory. And it's prompting her, and she knows I can't say what I'm thinking. I have to say something different than what I'm thinking. And that's why the pause. So that's the pause itself, the silence is a sign that she's trying to figure out what to say other than what she's thinking.
And then
that would be incriminating.
Right. And then Bob and Ed, she turns to the reporter or looks at the reporter. One of the very few times she actually looked him straight in the eye. She said, not sure what I'm allowed to say. And then he tells her, just like you transcribed here, share whatever you feel comfortable sharing.
Yeah. I can't imagine why she would think that she's not allowed, if her kid's missing, why she'd be not, they can't tell her what to say and what not to say. She doesn't need their permission. And here's the first thing that struck me, and I don't mean to interrupt you guys, but I get excited about this stuff. He says, I'm not sure what I'm allowed to share. Everybody assumes that allowed by who? Allowed by who? The police? No. Stefan.
Exactly. Not the police, Stefan. Because if you see in that other interview, he hovers behind her and
He's stalking her. Yeah.
Yeah, sits down behind her in that other interview, intimidating her. Okay.
Yep. And so I know everybody I talked to said, oh, but why would the police prevent her from saying something? It's like, not the police. He is. He's the one who's intimidating her. Yeah.
Cracking his knuckles, sitting behind her. You know, if you wanted to be supportive, why wouldn't you be sitting next to your girlfriend during the interview, not behind her, cracking your knuckles? And, you know, I mean, it was totally out of the ordinary. I've never seen anything like that.
I think he's listening to what she's saying so that next time he has to talk, their stories become more consistent. I think that's my.
Yeah, but you don't have to do that from sitting there cracking your knuckles, right?
Yep.
He's got his vape pen in his hand. You know, he talked about that he gave a statement to the police that he went to the vape store the morning of on Monday. There it is right there in his hand. It's a vape pen.
So when she said, I'm not sure what I can say, everybody assumed it was the police, but I think it's him.
It's him. Yeah. And that's why the big pause, because she's thinking, what's the consequence of saying what I want to say?
And it's strange that this guy's not sitting, as Ed just said, he's not sitting next to her. He's hovering behind her, just like we saw Shonda Vander Ark with her son when the police were interviewing him at that horrific murder of the small Timothy Ferguson over in Michigan, Norton Shores, Michigan. She sat and listened to the police interview her older son to make sure he didn't say the wrong things. And I think that's what he's doing here.
Right, exactly. And if he was really consoling her, he'd be by her side, okay, during the interview to console her that she's, you know, missing her daughter. And none of that is occurring here. This is totally unreasonable what's going on here. This is not normal.
Well, if you look at her eyes, and they're not as bad on this one as they are on the other interview, but there's still a sense of this wide-eyed, like I say, especially in the first one, of fear. And her expressions are an expression of fear. And I mean, look at her. She looks like she's just deathly afraid. And that kind of makes sense when we compare what we just said about Stefan and what she's allowed to say and not say. I think things, although we can't prove it, it all kind of adds up and points in a certain direction.
Right. Yeah, 100%. Let's go to some of the chats, Ed and Bob. And Ed, I know you have limited time. I want to just say thank you to everyone who became members during the course of the show. We're not done yet. Dawn, thank you. Love watching you guys. Thank you. Indiana sends in a super chat and says, why is she confronting him? It's her child.
Why is he comforting him?
Right. Comforting him. Yes. Okay. The lettering is so small on the thing I can't even read. Why is she comforting him? Exactly. She shouldn't be comforting him. She should be saying, hey, get your ass out and let's go and search for my daughter.
He didn't comfort her.
No, not at all. Not at all.
Well, that's one thing that maybe kind of suggests she might have some subtle involvement in the whole thing. Who knows?
Yeah.
What this is going to turn up, that she may have played an active role in this to a certain degree. Who knows?
Friends, if you're new and you're not yet subscribed, consider subscribing to this great community, Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, where we have all kinds of great experts like Bob Schaefer come on and break it down for you. And look, she's really shaken a lot here. And it was so, right out of the gate, Bob, she was doing this right from the beginning when they asked her just to read her name. And I'm going to play it right here.
Okay. So the first question is if I can have your first, your last name and spell them both out for me.
Okay. Jennifer Soto, Jennif.
So could this be something that she's normally doing? We didn't see her doing it in the Fox interview that we played prior to this, the one with the blonde-haired reporter. She was not shaken like that. So something was different. Some type of dynamic was different, and she had him right behind her in that interview that we were just showing. So you would have thought maybe she would have been more nervous. But we don't know what was going on at that particular time when that interview went on. But yeah, so I want to continue if there is more that you maybe would have to say, and I want to get your notes back up. So
I'd like to talk a little bit about him. Yeah.
Go ahead.
Let me get the note. There was no notes on him, right?
Yeah, it's continued down the page. In fact, it's Just past where it says, I was the one who took, or wasn't the one who took her to school, and about 4 lines further, it says Stephan Sterns. So scroll down a little bit further. Yeah, keep going. There we go.
Okay, right
This
here.
gets into his part, yeah. So I just ran him on the same page. So,
So we've
So,
segued now into Stephan Sterns, his interview and so forth. So now we're on to him.
and again, I'm just looking at what he said and ask myself, why would he say that? What's the thought process behind those words? And one of the first things that, well, first we connect I. First she says we dropped her off, and then he says I dropped her off. And so there's real confusion and probably maybe a lack of coordination. But I'm going to go back to the idea that it's not from memory. Neither one of them dropped her off. It's a fabricated story. And so there's no firm foundation of information to base it on. So the words like this get mixed up. I see it happen all the time.
Well, he did drop her off. He dropped her off where the body was found.
Yeah, well, yeah. But which maybe leads to the next word I have there boxed in, everything. He's trying to project an image in our mind. He wants us to visualize something, which is him dropping her off at the church parking lot to go to school. And it's easy for me to say what a normal person would have said, or, you know, under just a normal circumstance. I would have said, she looked fine when I drove away. But he uses the word everything looked fine, which is, it's impersonal, which was a clue right there to me when he uses an impersonal object word to describe a person.
Right.
There's a problem with that. And that's when I started adding up lines through 1 through 41, I'm thinking she's already dead. I had the impression before I even heard it on the news, the press conference, media conference, that she was probably dead right after that conversation Jen had with her about the birthday. I think she died that night. That was my impression before I even knew it.
Right.
And this was another clue.
Can I let the audience know what you're referencing to here?
Yeah.
I shared just the 2 interviews with Bob, and I asked him to do his workup. And then later today, well, later in my day and earlier in his, because he's behind, we had a phone conversation where I just wanted to, we just wanted to talk a little bit. And he had this whole thing all put out, and, he shared it. Maybe he didn't share it with me at this point, but we talked a little bit about this. And so Bob didn't even see the press conference before he wrote all this up. And that's what makes this so great, is that this is his workup and what he was thinking before he even heard the sheriff say, we knew that she was dead before the day started. It's 7:35 in the morning. So that's what makes this so perfect, is that he didn't have any type of, nothing led him on. Nothing was swaying Bob into what the conclusion she drew here. But
Except his words. His words are the only thing that lead it. Yeah.
I thought it was interesting. The reporter asked him, "You look very emotional right now," and he didn't even acknowledge it. He didn't. No. He just went right into this thing.
He didn't talk about his emotion at all. Yeah. I don't know. Your audience might think it's interesting, but they might think, well, what's the purpose of this analysis? So what? I mean, lots of things can determine if somebody's telling the truth or not. Body language and maybe voice stress analysis and polygraph and things like that. But the purpose of the analysis is to find out ahead of time, ahead of the interview, if they're lying and what they're lying about, and all the answers to my interview questions come out of the analysis. So the analysis guides the interview and the interrogation. It shows me where they're lying and where they're telling the truth. And so it allows me to structure and to plan and strategize that interview to use their own language against them to compel the confession. So it's one thing to know if they're lying. That doesn't do you any good unless you can turn that into evidence, or you can turn that into a confession. And that's what the analysis does. It allows me to know what they're lying about and then attack that part of the story using their own words.
Fantastic. Yeah, I find this stuff fascinating. Ed, what's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, no, I want more. Come on.
It's like, give me.
I'm eating this up. Are you kidding me, man?
Well, line 43, I think the interview goes, so what was the conversation? He goes, not much. Well, he didn't say nothing at all. He said not much, which means there was some conversation. And so I went to have him elaborate on that. I say, well, there wasn't much conversation, but tell me what there was, because we know that conversation didn't take place. So I'm using his language to drive him into the details of that story that don't exist. And that's what's going to hang him. Does that make sense? He's going to have to invent the story on the fly, and I can catch him doing that.
Mhm.
Now, yeah, so that the little circle with the X through it there, next to the word told, the word told is just identifies communication words. That little X, I might let your audience maybe play detective here. What's the problem with that sentence? When he says, told her to have a good day at school, what's the problem with that? It's missing something. It's missing the word I. It has to have the word I for it to be a complete sentence. So when he says, told her to have a good day, that's one of the strongest signs of deception that there is, that he fails to attach himself to that piece of information. His subconscious will not allow him to take ownership of that. It's the difference. If you're interviewing me and you say, Bob, you did it, didn't you? And I say, didn't do it. I'm leaving off the I. That's not a confession. Didn't do it is nothing. It
Right.
has to have the I on there. And so when he leaves it off, and he doesn't realize that he even did it, he's like saying failing to take ownership. He's distancing himself from that piece of information. It's not credible. And that's one more little piece of the pie that leads to, that conversation never took place. Yeah.
Look at this comment from one of our live chatters. Autumn says, distancing possession.
Yeah. Distancing. Yeah.
Yep.
That's a good way to say it. Distancing him from that piece of information because he knows it's not true.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And I circled the box or the words "I love her" because that's kind of along the same lines as goodbye and good night, which is it's kind of a way it's kind of the final interaction. Although she's not there. She's dead by that point. But,
And she says, thanks, love you too.
yeah, and notice that there was no I on that either. It wasn't I love you too. It was just love you too. And so he's dropping the pronouns off, even though that she never, in his mind, it's another way of failing to take ownership or responsibility for what he said. So dropping those pronouns, I know most people think, so what? So what? It's huge. It's absolutely huge what you can determine from the pronouns, the ones that are there and the ones that aren't there.
Here it's Jay says the finality in words when they know he's already dead.
Yeah.
Bob, did you see the part of the interview where he goes into past tense about her?
You know, it started to get kind of chopped up at the end of that interview. A lot of with the journalists, the camera crew, and it was kind of back and forth, and I kind of cut it short, so I didn't get to that part.
I don't know if it was this interview or the second interview, but he used she was a great girl.
Yeah.
It was in that interview. It was in that interview.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah, and he did say that he used her and he spoke about her in the past.
And then he caught, excuse me. Then he caught himself, and then the next sentence he said something.
Right. I'm going to try to see if I can find it. Let's listen to a little bit of this, even though it's gross.
She was asleep for most of the way. Told her have a good day at school when she got out. I love her. Said thanks, love you too. That was it.
And so where do you think she could possibly be? I mean, this isn't, as I was told, this isn't normal behavior.
It is not normal behavior. She's not the type that would just run off. We don't know where she can be. And we're scared.
We're scared.
We just want her home.
We just want her home.
Are you, in a sense, blaming yourself?
It's hard not to.
Why?
I dropped her off early. I could have waited longer. She looked okay. She was walking towards the school when I saw her. It was like any other day, so I went on with my day. It's hard not to blame myself.
The constant shaking of the head, no. Is that any type of body language? I know that's not your expertise, but you said you had a colleague, right?
Yeah, that's one of the basic ones. Yeah, that the head movement should match what's coming out of their mouth. And when he says that and he's shaking his head no, that's the opposite of what, and she did the same thing. I noticed that she was doing that as well. But he did all of it.
I'm going to go out on a limb, and I think that an arrest is imminent of not only upgraded charges for him, obviously the capital murder, but I think in some way, shape, or form, and I don't know the exact charges because we don't know the particulars, but if I had a guess on it, I'd bet my pension that she's going to get collared.
How's the conversation been with Jen since?
She's been a
lot
stronger than me. She's been holding it together really well, and but it just keeps coming in waves. This reality keeps hitting. We don't know where she is. We don't know if she's safe.
Fake tears, no tears there.
We're just scared.
What is he wiping?
We just want to
try.
Have you literally put boots on the ground, went out?
Yeah, I even went out with the cops where I had dropped her off, and we looked all up and down the road, all along communities, and there was nothing helpful. None of the cameras were pointing the street. Nothing, which in 2024 was surprising. The church across the street had some cameras, and they mentioned seeing her waiting around in the parking lot for a while before moving on, and that was it. But it was grainy. It was grainy footage, and not much else.
Hey, Ron.
West, east.
Hey, guys, I got to jump off.
All right. Well, Ed, I just want to get your final thoughts before you jump off. You can't just go that easy.
Yeah, no, I love this, Bob. I love your work. I wish I could stay for the rest of the analysis. Very interesting, and I think you're spot on. And I hope the audience appreciates how the analysis of the written word here, or of the statements made here, then having performed this analysis and then can be used in the interview and interrogation of the actual suspects. It's great stuff. I love it. So, guys, I got to run. Always.
Thanks, Ed.
Thank you, Bob.
All right, Ed.
Stay prepared. Watch your six. Got to go.
There you go. That's Ed's sign off. Thank you, Ed. Bob, I want to get to that part where he says she was. It's coming up, so I'm going to speed it up.
Tense, yeah.
Yep.
They said in the direction of the school.
Did she seem happy? Was she like, I'm going to meet what was the language? Not language verbally, body language. When you dropped her off, did she seem happy? Was she like, I'm going to meet my friends?
Happy. She had a happy weekend. She just turned 13. She had her 13th birthday party. She was happy that we were all together here. And
she was happy.
She was just very happy. She was a happy kid. She's very sweet. She's a very sweet girl.
There you go.
She brings a lot of joy to us, and we just.
Now we have the advantage of knowing that he's in custody for, capital sexual battery. He actually had, went the extra step to be extra vile and record his crimes on his phone. And he told the investigators, I accidentally, on the day that she went missing on Monday, it was the day that she was murdered, I factory reset my phone. And all of us know, because we've all got new phones. Ed today just got a new phone, and that's the reason why he couldn't get on to his email. I had to actually text him the link, and he was using his new phone. And he was complaining to me today that, I have to go through all these steps to get all my stuff and to transfer everything. So when you do a factory reset, it asks you a few different times, are you sure you want to do this? So it was not an accident that he factory reset the phone. He was trying to get rid of the evidence. And I know that you have experience with computer crimes, not yourself, but within your major case squad and, the major crimes that you were a commander of and so forth.
Yep.
It's amazing, the technology and what you can get, even if you're deleting something or even if you throw your phone away, you could still get a lot of info from.
Never goes away. Yeah.
Never goes away.
Yeah.
Bob, I want to put you on a spot for a few minutes if you can. Hashtag Bob, hashtag DutyRon. Put your questions in the chat. Bob, I want to turn to our true crime enthusiasts and let them have a chance, because they sat here for an hour to ask you some tough questions as it pertains to Jennifer Soto and Stephan Sterns. We already know Stephan Sterns he's toast. He is not going anywhere. He's capital, sexual, battery charges, capital murder is forthcoming. But as it pertains to Jennifer Soto, if there's any questions from the audience, a lot of thank yous coming in quickly for Bob. But I want to go to you guys because it's only fair. You guys have been here and hanging out. So put those hashtags in and any of your questions, and I'll look at some of the starred comments and so forth. So thank you to everybody who's supporting Bob. Anything jump out at you as it pertains that we didn't cover to Jennifer Soto and her statements?
I don't think so. For me, I'm pretty particular and I'm very critical about interview strategy and the interviewers. And I think that journalists and whoever else are asking those questions could benefit a lot from learning. And I don't mean to sound like a jerk, but they're not very good interviewers. And if they were to ask questions a certain way, in a better way, I think they'd get a lot better information out. And that's why the analysis that I have was probably not quite as thorough as I normally would like, because I wasn't able to ask the questions myself. And I just think that journalists and news people would really, really benefit from learning how to interview somebody. And I don't want to say how to interrogate them, but to get better information. Yeah.
It's one of the big problems with the news. It's not their job to be detective investigators. So,
yeah,
most of them are just trying to get a story and get a piece for their newsroom. And they should, I feel that some of the training that they should receive it probably wouldn't be a big bulk of it, but they should definitely get some training as it pertains to interviewing potential subjects in crimes like this, because it definitely would be helpful. But some of them are really good. Out in Bakersfield, they did a phenomenal job of extracting a lot of information. The one and only interview that Trezell and Jacqueline West gave, they extracted a lot of good info. Let's look at the chat, because I know there's more. Okay, yeah, here's one. There was a parrot in the background, but we don't think it was a parrot. I think it was a reminder to feed the parrot, or a reminder to do something. I think it was an automated device, and people were thinking that it's a parrot. I don't have any confirmation, but people are like, well, there was a parrot screaming in the background or talking in the background. Behaviors should talk to this bird. We know, Bob, you and I, you can't take testimony from a bird and put it into a court of law. So no matter what the bird said, it's not going to work.
Yeah. I did it. Yeah. That wouldn't be admissible. Yeah.
She was involved. He was involved. So here, Roxanne is asking you, putting you on the spot, hashtag Bob, will we see Jennifer in an interrogation/arrest soon?
I would be surprised if there wasn't some kind of charges coming out. And we talked earlier today about the police department's doing a pretty good job about keeping things close to them. And even though it might look like they got nothing and they don't know what they're doing, they don't have any information, they're at a dead end. And typically that's not the case. And I think based on the information that came out, I'd be shocked if, unless there's some really strong evidence to the contrary, that, as though maybe she was also being victimized and she was living in fear and terror, something like that, I think just what we analyzed today shows that she had an involvement, and I'd be shocked if there wasn't something coming.
Yeah. I could tend to feel the same way, and that's how I felt on Saturday when I first saw the two interviews that she did, and I don't think I shared that second Fox interview with you. I only shared the one where they were both, or did I share that Fox one with you as well?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I looked at it later on. Yeah.
Okay.
I actually had it earlier. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Chantel is going into an area where it's for another show. We're going to have a corrections expert, Anthony Ganji, come on with us to talk about this. Chantel Penton says, DutyRon, do you think he will get prison justice? Let's hope so. I mean, prisons, jails, he's in a jail right now, so he's not in prison. Prison is when you, as we know, get sentenced and you get your state time and you go upstate, you go to a state prison. He's now in a local jail, and those sometimes are worse than the prisons because all of the local bad guys and girls are in those jails awaiting either some type of resolution to their case or, like in his instance, waiting to go to trial on charges or waiting to get upgraded charges. He's not even waiting to go to trial. He's in suspended animation. So jails are some of the places where some of the more some inmates get more injured. They have more of a propensity to have some type of engagement because they're not looking at them like when you have permanent housing. It's a structured thing. You know, you're up in the state, and it's a little bit tighter. But
let's say with the notoriety, this case too, and these sex crimes, they might have them under a special watch as well and keep them isolated from other people. Yeah,
absolutely. I want to play for the audience, Bob. Do you got another 5 minutes? I want to play the beginning clip that we played in the beginning because there's a lot of people here. There's 6,000 people watching us live. Thank you for being here. Give the video a thumbs up. Put a 1 in the chat if you want an opportunity to receive a free membership. Make sure you hit the thumbs up and subscribe. And I'm going to send a couple of free memberships while we watch this clip on Jennifer Soto and some developing information in inconsistencies in her story. And that's what we talked about for this whole hour with Bob.
The story Madeline's mother provided law enforcement doesn't line up with what investigators know.
We spoke one-on-one with Jennifer Soto last Tuesday. Good afternoon. I'm Darlene Jones.
And I'm Greg Wormuth. At that point, her daughter Madeline had been missing for 1 day. She told us that Stephan Sterns, her boyfriend and now the prime suspect in Madeline's death, had taken the teenager to school. She said the last conversation she had with the 13-year-old was the night before. But this report we got a hold of today shows she told deputies she saw her daughter the morning of her disappearance. Channel 9 investigative reporter Shannon Butler has been digging into the details of this case. She joins us live in studio. And Shannon, that's not the only thing you noticed in this new report.
Greg, no one has been charged in Madeline Soto's death, but we do know investigators are looking into who knew what and when. And some of that means looking at those initial interviews of the couple and the ones later on. Sources tell me the statements about the timeline are not consistent. Jennifer Soto told us last week that the last conversation she had with her daughter was about her 13th birthday party the night before Maddie disappeared.
I told her good night, and that was it.
But according to documents, Sunday night was not the last time Soto saw Maddie. New documents show that Maddie's mom told deputies on February 26th that she saw her daughter getting dressed for school at 8 o'clock that morning, and that her boyfriend then took the teen to school. But since that initial report was taken, we learned from the Orange County Sheriff that Maddie was likely dead earlier than that.
Our detectives have determined that Madeline was never dropped off. Instead, we believe she was already dead at the time, and that Stephan Sterns moved her body in the early morning hours on that day.
Channel 9 has been going through statements from Stephan Sterns and Soto trying to piece together what happened in the last few hours of the little girl's life, starting with our interview of the couple. Her mom told us last week.
We dropped her off at school, close to school.
Hey, Bob, that was the part that everyone was really not happy with, this right here. Her consoling him, putting her arms around him during that interview. It's just classic. And you know what? I want to bring us back on just for a second. I have no doubts that she is a battered woman. He has probably commanded and controlled her and beat her probably over the course of time. There's no question in my mind that he is completely in control of her, and she is definitely afraid of him. But that's no excuse. That's your flesh and blood. And if you have any type of information, or if you have knowledge, and we saw this with the case of Harmony Montgomery, it was just the reverse. It was the father who had no regard for his daughter's life, and his new wife had knowledge that he had killed her and smushed her and condensed her and put her in the ceiling and dragged her to a meat locker and stored her, and had all of that knowledge and didn't say one word. And she claimed that, she was afraid for her life. I don't doubt for 1 minute we're going to hear a defense from her that she was frightened. Your thoughts?
Oh yeah, I think that's going to be her defense. I also feel like maybe she's acting that way, consoling him because she feels like she needs to protect herself too from the legal system. I think she knows that she's probably in line for some discipline, and that they're kind of in it together. But I think she's deeply entrenched in probably the abuse, but she's also entrenched in what he was doing. She knew about it. I'm again speculating, but I feel pretty confident she knew about it, and that makes her a kind of complicit in his crimes, and she's knows that they're in this together, and and that when he goes, she goes, and I have a feeling that there's, and and who knows what they talked about. It could be that, hey Stefan, I know you didn't mean it. I know you did something you couldn't help, and who knows? There's some flaky thought processes out there. Yeah.
And a lot of people are asking the questions in the online chat groups and all over Reddit and Facebook. Did she have knowledge that her boyfriend, her significant other, was sexually abusing her daughter? And that's a question that's unanswered. None of us know. Only one that knows is the two of them, and maybe anybody who Maddie might have told or tried to reach out. And we heard some rumors that she cried out for help to some friends and some other people. But as this investigation unfolds, we'll continue to hear more as it pertains to that. But as of right now, people are just speculating because nothing's going out there right now. Everything's quiet. And when things are quiet, that's when investigations are really ramping up. And when police are not giving statements, when you don't hear anything more from the mom anymore, you know that things are happening, that the wheels of justice are spinning. So
I'm wondering if the fact that she turned 13 has something to do with it. Went from being a kid to now a teen, and she's kind of, kind of matured to the point. My big question in my head was, why that night? Why did it happen that night? And I don't know that it's a coincidence that it's because she turned 13.
It could be, Bob, but people speculate that she was about to come out and tell the police, or say, hey, I'm a teenager now, I'm not taking this anymore. And then there was also a rumor that she was pregnant, and none of us know any of this information. When the autopsies, which it has been completed already, we know the autopsy's done, the reports are there. If in fact she was pregnant, that's part of the exam. That's what they're going to do. They'll find out. But at this point right now, we do not know what that's the case. So there could be many possibilities of why it happened that night, on the night of her celebration. It wasn't her 13th birthday. Her 13th birthday was, I think, on Wednesday or Thursday. But they celebrated it that night, and that was when her life ended, according to police. And it could be a multitude of different things. But I have a feeling.
I don't think it's by coincidence.
This is probably something that's been building up. This isn't just one day she said, I'm going to tell. I'm telling you, I'm exposing you. I'm done with you raping me. I'm done with you. She could have been leading up to this and having little moments of strength, little moments of pushback. But let's take a listen to the rest of this, and we'll show your website, because I want to promote some of the work that you do.
Interview of the couple. Her mom told us last week.
We dropped her off at school, close to school. She wanted to walk the rest.
And coincidentally, the close to school, I have looked at where that church is. You have to go across a 4-lane highway to the school. That is not somewhere where anybody would drop a kid off. Like if I drop my kid off a block and a half or 2 blocks away from school, he'd be like, Dad. And that's a boy. What are you doing? No, I'm tired. Allegedly, according to them, she was sleeping. You're going to just wake her up and say, oh, okay, get out right here. Go. Walk across the 4-lane highway, go to school.
Well, that was another part. My question was, they have such a hard time finding video. Maybe that was intentional. Maybe there aren't any images, and there weren't, because, and I hate to think that this was planned, but the fact that they dropped off in that parking lot is because there were no witnesses to it, and there weren't any good cameras, and there might have been some prior knowledge of that. But again, that's the speculation.
Absolutely. And there's talk that he also did do some drive arounds and came back around 8:30 so he could be seen on a camera, or there's a whole bunch of things floating around. By the way, there is still a vote. There's a poll that's up. Do you think Jennifer Soto was being honest in her news interviews? 7% said yes, 80% said no, and 13% said she was afraid to be honest. So 80% said no, she was not honest, 7% said yes, and 13% agreed that she was afraid to be honest. There's 4,280 votes. Let's get those votes up. Make your voice count. I want to show that poll at the end of this. We're getting ready to wrap it up.
the way.
But in that same interview, then said,
I was the one who took her to school in the morning. That was my partner.
detectives believe Maddie was likely dead early Monday morning because a video timeline shows Maddie's belongings being dumped in a dumpster at 7:35 by Stearns. At 8:19, Sheriff Mina said video shows Maddie in Stearns' vehicle believed to be deceased. Since then, the case has moved to Kissimmee Police, and sources tell us that Soto has been interviewed multiple times by detectives at 2 agencies, and that they are looking closely at all the statements she's made. But officially, Kissimmee Police won't comment. So this initial report also shows that Stearns told investigators that after Maddie got out of his car, she stopped to look in that book bag before he drove away. That same book bag was found actually in the dumpster. After her death, he then said he went home for about an hour after going to the vape store and running errands. He was home that day until 2:30. Detectives say a tip showed him changing a flat tire not far from where the little girl's body was found that afternoon.
All right, Shannon, it is starting to piece together. Thank you. We also spoke to suspect Stephan Sterns before he was arrested. He also told us he dropped off Madeline for school the morning of her disappearance.
She was asleep for most of the way. Told her have a good day at school when she got out. I love her. She said, thanks, love you too. That was it.
Again, law enforcement believes Stearns never drove Madeline to school and that she was already dead that morning.
That's a look at a demon right there, ladies and gentlemen. That is a demon. Bob, I want to, again, thank you for taking out the time, but we're not done. I got to show some of the work that you're doing now. If you care to just let the folks know what you've been up to in your retirement, and I'm going to pull it out real quick and post it up as you talk.
Yeah, thanks. So, among other things, I've been spending a lot of time analyzing statements involved in a couple task force. And the one thing I'd like to draw some people's attention to is I just posted is that February was the 50th anniversary of Ted Bundy's first murder. And 50 years, and 1986 or 84. And Julia Healy was her name. Anyway, I thought it'd be interesting to dig up some of his stuff, and I found his last interview, the interview that he gave the day before he was executed, and it's pretty interesting. And I would invite people to
we
check
could do
that
a whole
out.
live stream on that.
I think that just got posted yesterday, and it should be on the website. But there's an analysis of his interview, and I'm also working on, and I'll get this posted probably next week, is Alec Baldwin's interview, his description of how that the shooting took place that resulted in the death of his director. So I'll be analyzing his story as well. So I got lots of time to do stuff like that, among other things.
I would love to watch that with you and have like a watch party with all the subscribers. There's over 6,000 people watching us live here right now. This is a link to Bob's website where you can go, and he has featured on Court TV, in Crime Time with DutyRon, Crimes Against Children's Conference, and the various others. People can go on to his site here and sign up for the courses, right? It looks like.
Yeah, I teach courses live. I'll go on site and teach courses at different police departments or agencies, to private and all kinds of private, special, and criminal investigators. And then I have a video series, a 10, 11-hour video series that is everything you'll ever want to know about statement analysis. And you can do it in the comfort and of your own home. So, and then along with that is I also offer a mentoring program where over the course of a year, you get nearly weekly statements to analyze together, and learn the process that much quicker. So you get the benefit of using me as a personal mentor. So lots of offerings there, and I just want to get it out there. It's just a valuable tool, and It's interesting, and it's fun. It's really a lot of fun. Every time I get a statement, the first thing I think is, "I got you. I'm going to get you." Yeah.
And for the audience watching, I have it linked in the description. So if you want to go over to that website, all you got to do is go into the description of this live stream and go over and click on it, and you could just go right to his website. I want to look at the poll, Bob, if you don't mind.
No, I'm good. Yeah.
See where we're at with this thing. So I'm going to show it live. This is going to be a first for me. I'm going to show my screen. Ooh, I heard a little puppy there. Is that on your end?
Yeah, you could hear that, huh?
Yeah,
I have a good microphone.
So here you got 4,503. That was my old badge number, by the way, 4503. I'm not lying. Hold on a second. I got my NYPD gold shield here. I'm going to show it. We just had 4,503.
I'm glad it wasn't 33. That was my number. That would have been a bad response.
4503. There it is, folks. So that's how many votes we have now. It's 4,516. I'm going to give a couple of people a little bit more time to get their votes in. Here it's swelling. 4,524 votes. The yes. I'll read the question. What I asked you guys before we went live is, do you think Jennifer Soto was being honest in her news interviews? And it was a simple yes, no, or afraid to be honest was the third option. 7% of the 4,500 said she was being honest. 7% of the folks feel she was being honest. An astounding 80% said no, and 13% said she was afraid to be honest. I mean, the numbers don't lie, and I think that this poll is going to give you guys a good idea of where everybody's at with this. And if you voted in that poll during the day today, because I had it running during the day, Bob, I'm sure some people who voted yes, she was being honest, after looking at this live stream and looking at the news report that we just played twice, once in the beginning and once at the end, they'll be like, hey, can I take my yes vote back? But again, I want to say thank you to you for taking an hour and 20 out of your day. Will you promise to come back again sometime soon for us, Bob?
Yeah, all it takes is a text or phone call. I'd be more than happy to. And if people are having trouble finding that Bundy statement, I'll make sure with my web person that they gets easy access when they get to the website. So, but yeah, I'd love to come back, and there's all kinds of good stuff to talk about. So.
Yeah, excellent. And look, some of the people in the chat, let's hear it for badge 4503. Let's hear it for Bob. Let's hear it for Bob. I want to put you on the spot again. This is the 5th time I'm doing it. Your final thoughts as it pertains to Jennifer Soto. We already know about Stephan Sterns, but your final thoughts as it pertains to her statement of Jennifer Soto to the media.
Yeah, the broad, the 30,000-foot view is that she's deceptive. Regardless of what her reasoning is, she's not telling the truth, and she's misleading the listener. And based on some of the visual images, it's not understandable how she can act so close to him and so sympathetic to him. I don't understand that, but I think we're going to find out more. But that her intent was to deceive the listener, and I didn't see any even signs that she was trying to secretly get out, secretly point the finger at him. It seemed like she was trying to protect him. So I think that just, again, educated speculation that she's going to end up being complicit in this thing, and probably going to bear the consequences of that.
Mm-hmm. I do think that in the days that are coming, we may see an arrest of Jennifer Soto. I just want to say this to the folks who feel that she is not being deceptive. We respect that. And again, this is just our opinions from a professional point of view. And it really, this is Bob's, this is what he did for many decades in the police department. So this is his expertise. And that's really what you're getting here. This is not a definitive answer, but if I was a betting man and we were in Vegas, I would put 500 on Bob Schaefer.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
So again, I want to say thank you to all the new viewers, all the replay viewers, all the moderators, the live chatters. The great part about YouTube, ladies and gentlemen, is that after these live streams are over, you can go into the comment section and leave a comment for myself, for Bob, for Ed, and we can continue the conversation after the live is over. So if you missed it and you're watching the replay, no worries. We can continue this conversation down below in the comment section. A simple thumbs up and a subscription to this channel is free. It's easy to do, and we thank you. And I'm going to again preface, please do not go and try to harass any of these folks, especially the mom. Let the police do their job, and the investigators. Do not go after her on social media. Do not send vicious, threatening messages. That makes you a criminal. Don't do it. It's never a good look. And I beg you guys, although the information that we unpacked here tonight was not favorable for Jennifer Soto, it doesn't mean it's a green light for you to go after and attack her. And I can't emphasize that enough, folks. We're better people. Do not stoop to that level.
Every time I do an analysis, I get done with it and I come up with a conclusion. I feel extremely confident, but I also come at it from a humble perspective, which is I could be wrong. I'm just a person, and I have a perspective, but that doesn't make me right. And I always say this is what I think happened, but I could be wrong, and that helps also people from, especially investigators, from chasing bad information. And so there's always that chance that we're wrong, and she just is one of those people that comes across the wrong way. So.
And it's going to be up to those investigators who have access to the case file, which we don't, and they will be they'll be able to decipher and sift through or weed the garden, so to speak. Go and get the bad information and get to the meat and potatoes of it, what it is. So let the investigators do their job. But what we saw on face value here in these interviews, Bob is saying deception. So I go with it. I all day, every day in Vegas, I put 500 on Bob. So on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, we want to say thank you to all of you, the live chatters, the replays, the folks who newly subscribed, everyone who's been gifted a membership. Again, after this is over, put a 1 in the chat. If you want a membership, I'll be giving out a couple of more memberships about a minute or two after this is over. So keep putting those 1s in the chat and keep giving the thumbs up to the video. Thank you, Bob. Again, on behalf of Crime Time with DutyRon and Ed Wallace, I wish you all a good night. Stand by for a message from our cop team. And Bob, if you could just stay at the end, let me just talk to you for a second. Thanks. Good night from New York. And Bob, I'm not going to give his location away because there will be so many people that want his autograph that we. Good night from New York City. We'll see you soon.